G'day and welcome to the Off-Chain Podcast. Don here with you. Our guest today is Jen Senhaji, Head of Growth and Business Development at Chronicle, the novel Oracle solution on Ethereum. Chronicle secures over $22 billion in assets for MakerDAO and its ecosystem since 2017. We're excited to have Jen on the show to talk about her time at Maker, Chronicle's mission, her thoughts on the sales and BD cycles in Web3, and how Scribe, their Oracle network architecture, is delivering more security and transparency for DeFi. Let's dive in. Tell us, how did you get started working in Web3? You're a bit of an OG. How did you get started in Web3?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I joined crypto in 2018. I was part of the founding BD team at MakerDAO, now known as Sky. And prior to that, I spent most of my career in what is Web 2, in business development and sales roles, working on digital publishing companies like the Financial Times, and then kind of more later in the career, started working with startups doing like ad tech types of products, specifically around data targeting and, ways to capture online user behavior and online profiles in a very automated way, which everybody has experience in. Whenever you open up any website, you're usually immediately hit with some type of pop-up ad or something else, some type of advertisement that's, maybe interrupting your viewing experience. However, there's a huge industry behind that, right? And that part of data targeting was something that I started to question my involvement in. And it just was one of those things where I personally didn't love the user experience. I just felt like it was very interruptive. When you're online and you're trying to read a news article, being, battered by some random pop-up ad about buying a car. So my interest in that space started to dwindle, and I was looking to get into something a little bit more tech focused. And a good friend of mine who was like an early crypto enthusiast that I should look into something called blockchain technology. So I did a little Google search and scratched my head, wasn't sure what it meant, did a little bit more research, found it interesting, but fully didn't understand it. And then just kept going back to it and doing a lot of research and education on, what it is, and then landed on Bitcoin and this concept of a decentralized, currency, which was really intriguing to me. So I started to look for jobs at that time that were working in this field. And so I always say, like, I fell into crypto very accidentally and by good luck, because at that time, MakerDAO, who was, like the OG, largest DeFi protocol, by TVL, and kind of like the, pioneer in decentralized stablecoins and now tokenization, they were hiring for a BD person. And so I applied, and I had enough working buzzwords to get my way through the interviews, and then coupled with having, the BD and sales experience through Web 2, I landed the job. So that's kind of how that was my entry point in, and I learned everything about crypto through that experience. And the first 3 months, I really felt like I was in another country, hearing a different language, because all the acronyms, the concepts were so foreign to me. But it was exciting nonetheless.
And it's quite an entry into Web3, going straight to the top, when it comes to MakerDAO. They've got a really good and had a really good reputation since, even back when you were around. Did you find, I know that there are a growing number of women in Web3 today. Rewind 6 or 7 years ago, there were not many women in Web3. If you don't mind me asking, how did you go? Were there many women at MakerDAO, or even in the industry at large? It's back then it was it was very much a boys club. Not MakerDAO, just been crypto generally and blockchain generally. How'd you go kind of cracking in, not just into Web3, but into that sphere where there perhaps were less women around?
Yeah, no, I mean, when I joined Maker in 2018, it was again, like such early days, and there was only probably like 5 or 6 applications on Ethereum. So it was just not a lot of people in general. And the people that were there were these really kind of, like ethos aligned technologists, engineers, developers who were primarily all male. And this was something that they believed in. They wanted to build a different financial system, and they were kind of opting out of the traditional work roles after graduating college. And if you were a computer scientist working in finance, or if you studied finance, working in finance. So you did have this kind of niche group of males, I would say like also on the younger side, like mid-20s, who were just like really compelled and motivated by the ethos of like this alternative financial system. So yes, very little women, but interestingly, Maker had probably the most women on its team, even back then. So on the business development team, there was myself and 2 other women, which is actually kind of astounding now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
So I think Maker was an exception in the early days in hiring, but just like as a space in general, there were just less people coming into it, and as it matured, that demographic of male kind of male centric continued to dominate. So yeah, when I would talk to people, who were essentially like the teams I wanted to do business with, and our offering was, we have a decentralized stablecoin. And even that was a new concept, because in 2018 you had Bitcoin and you had Ethereum. And on the Ethereum network, everybody was really thinking that ETH as the asset would be the medium of exchange, right? And there was no USDC. There was actually USDT, but there wasn't a decentralized version of a stablecoin. There was a fiat-backed coin like USDT. So the concept of DAI was this stable Bitcoin. And so my kind of job was to first and foremost introduce this concept and get people who were building applications to use DAI, to list DAI as a medium for a medium of exchange. And I do remember like sometimes laughing, internally, where I'd be on these calls and, I'd be like on a call with like a 22-year-old guy. And I'm also like a little older than that demographic. So I was like, woman talking to this kid, and it worked. I never felt like, there was any dismissiveness in that regard, but it was in my mind noticeable that I am like this woman talking to pretty much men all day on the other side of the phone. But it's been great to see really in the last 2 years, I would say like so many women, present, and you have a lot more organizations that make it easier for women to kind of opt in, and even just, at conferences, because there's so many conferences in crypto right now. I'm actually at DevCon, speaking of which, organizations like SheFi is this, they put on events, pretty much at all the major events, and they have women speakers and just like highlight what women are doing in the space. And it's very inclusive, men can attend, and I've been noticing like more men are attending the SheFi events, which is awesome. But it's been quite significant, the amount of females, engineers, non-technical, who have joined the space and are making like some incredible contributions, because there's just some really super talented females in the space currently, which is awesome.
Do you think it's just the maturing of the space, or is it specifically efforts like SheFi that's actually helping to kind of not balance, not that balance is the goal necessarily, but to open it up to people who ordinarily or 5-6 years ago weren't looking at this space?
I think it's also, I think it's the evolution of crypto as this kind of industry. And again, like it does certainly skew younger. I would say like statistically, if I had to guess, the average age of somebody in crypto is like 27, right? 25 to 27. And so you have a lot of people graduating top schools that are now, again, they're just bypassing working at a consulting firm or working at one of the big banks, and they're just going right into crypto, or they're building and becoming a founder because they built something from scratch. And so I think there's just this real interest and desire to be a part of this space. And of course, like, it's not without the financial opportunity as well.
Sure.
I think that's like always like a nice carrot to have, where people see you could potentially have your idea funded easier than, working in traditional or getting like a traditional VC deal. It's, the entry point is a little bit easier in crypto. So there are a lot of drivers that I think are just pulling in people, whether it's male or female, into crypto. And that has been reflected in the general population.
So I'm keen to hear about MakerDAO. Actually, what is it? You've been there for a very long time, and MakerDAO has been around in terms of, the crypto space for a very long time. Man, one of the kind of maybe peers, or certainly one of the original. Like you said, there's only a couple of apps back in the day. What is it?
Yeah. So essentially, I think it was the first app on Ethereum. So it launched DAI, its main product, in 2017. And so its product was initially this decentralized stablecoin, and the ability to create this stablecoin was and is what the kind of financial primitive that Maker offered. And so that was a way for anybody anywhere to take a loan against their ETH, and now different collateral. But instead of having to go to a bank and get a loan against other credit you have, you can just take Ethereum, some other crypto asset that is supported by Maker, and generate a decentralized dollar off of it. And that was something that, didn't exist before, and allowed for people to become financially independent. Again, if you didn't have a credit score because you lived in a country where that didn't exist, or maybe you did have a bad credit score and you were struggling to get a loan, if you had some cryptocurrency, you now had a way to generate a loan against it. So that very simply it is what Maker allows, this a way to borrow against assets you own in a permissionless fashion, meaning you don't have to go to a bank, you don't have to do KYC, you don't have to talk to anybody. You just need to be online and have a collateral asset that is supported to mint this decentralized dollar against.
Mm-hmm. So how did the idea for Chronicle come about? Tell us about Chronicle.
So Chronicle was actually born within Maker. So back in 2017, when DAI was being launched on Ethereum, there was no oracles available. So it was before Chainlink was online, and in order to support the launch of DAI, we needed an oracle, and an oracle plays a very important role of providing information, data, price feed information, any type of information. But within crypto, let's focus on like crypto price information. So a smart contract application can't communicate outside of its own application. It relies on oracles to bring in this information from other places. So that could be exchanges, think Coinbase, Kraken. It could be decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, Balancer. And it essentially ports data from, an off-chain location to an on-chain location. So in order for DAI to be launched on Ethereum, it needed an oracle. So out of necessity, we created an oracle in-house. So our founder of Chronicle, Nick Kunkel, was one of the two engineers that was tasked with creating this in-house oracle. So that was essentially V1 of what is Chronicle, now V3. So we were actually the first Oracle that was launched on Ethereum. And now, 6.5 years later, we are not just available to Maker. We soft launched out to the public in the fall of 2023. And now anybody who wants to utilize Chronicle as an Oracle can also do that. So we're this hybrid like OG first Oracle on the market. But as of last year, we're kind of like this newer kid on the block where, the name Chronicle wasn't as widely known as Chainlink, simply because we had never been available commercially to anybody outside of Maker up until last year.
So is Chronicle doing the same kinds of things that Chainlink is doing in the same kinds of ways? What's the point of differentiation there?
Yeah, on the surface, what people require from, an Oracle from, a price speed perspective, Chainlink and Chronicle are serving the same market. So if you're an app developer and you have a lending protocol, you need an Oracle to tell you what is the price of any given asset at any given time, because that's going to inform liquidation prices. It's going to inform like how much people are buying something for, and essentially anything related to price. So on the surface, Chainlink and Chronicle are providing that price information. How we do it, what's under the hood, is different. So our design really focuses on decentralization, which in our world isn't just like a nice buzzword that people like to throw around. It's actually like the right tool for this product, because at the end of the day, an Oracle is an external piece of infra that an application is utilizing. So let's say a lot of the applications on Ethereum or Web3, they generally have ambitions to be built in a decentralized manner, right? Because while there are sometimes, applications that are built in a centralized way to start, there's usually some goal to kind of slowly decentralize it over time. So we also are trying to help support that overall design package of providing a decentralized application with a decentralized infra partner. And so with our system, each piece of it is kind of broken out into various ways, and I could get into it. But overall, what we're delivering is a decentralized architecture. Also, more importantly, the most operationally cost efficient, based on how we are, signing messages within our infra, and it's netting out to a operational cost reduction of up to 80% compared to any Oracle provider, which is significant. So when we're now talking to developers and teams who need an Oracle, what we provide is this highly resilient, highly decentralized, and also Lindy-rich infra, but at the most cost-effective prices, which is what most people care about, right? Because you can have something that's designed really well, but if you can't afford it, it's not going to do anything for you.
Yeah. Often the trade-off, though, in decentralization is speed. How do you think that decentralized oracles will ever kind of match up in terms of speed with centralized oracles?
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, speed is really a function of how you configure the updates, right? And so we can, have updates as frequent as somebody wants, or as less frequent as somebody wants. So those kind of like update parameters are all configurable within the system. So you don't have to sacrifice decentralization for speed within an Oracle protocol.
So for people who maybe are in the same kind of position that MakerDAO was in back in the day, and the Oracle didn't exist, but they're thinking, oh, we might need to build an Oracle, and now they don't need to build an Oracle. What kinds of apps or founders or businesses or companies or projects do you think could use an oracle that perhaps haven't thought about it before?
Yeah, I mean, oracles can be utilized for any type of data. Right now, again, the main use case is crypto price feeds, because that's primarily what the data needs are across DeFi and across Web3. But you can really, provide data on any type of information, whether like commodities, fixed income, you name it. There's been, actually somebody asked me if we could provide data on like the prices of vintage watches, for example. So yeah, if there is a data source, you can create an oracle, because at the end of the day, oracle is built on a data model. And so within crypto prices, data models consist of exchanges. So you could think about centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, and having the ability for, what in our architecture, validators have the ability to query these data sources and ask it, what is the price of ETHUSD, BTCUSD at any given time? So those data sources are kind of the starting point of creating a robust oracle. If you only have one data source, that you're relying on one source being accurate or manipulated. So within the DeFi space, we have a system where we're utilizing higher, only higher quality data sources, and then having a large set of validators who are participating and querying and asking, what is the price of this? So we don't just take one answer per one validator. We usually have anywhere between 13 to 15 validators participating in a particular update. And each of those validators are signing with their keys, like, this is what I think the price is. And so then we take a median of those prices, and that's what the output of a price update is. So I think that's kind of like a good example of like why decentralization matters for oracles, because you don't want just one data source. You don't want just one validator saying, yep, this is the number, signing off on it, all good, right? Because that could be easily manipulated. You need a large data set, and you need a large decentralized validator set to improve the resiliency of the data in itself.
So is that what's meant by a verified asset oracle? Is that the verification process, or something different?
Yeah. So the word verify, for us, kind of across like everything we do is like that ethos, verify, don't trust. Our verified asset oracle is our product that we have specific to looking at like what is known as proof of reserves, from the RWA space, understanding like what is the value of a particular off-chain fund. So the net asset value of a treasury fund or T-bills fund off-chain, which is totally different in its makeup than an on-chain price asset. So I guess this is a good way to transition into our two product offerings. So we have our classic DeFi price feeds, which are exactly what that sounds like. Somebody needs a price feed for any type of crypto asset. We can provide you an oracle for that. And we're utilizing those exchanges like I described, on-chain exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, Uniswap Balancer, a host of those on-chain trading venues to provide price updates. And when it comes to what people like to talk about, real world assets or tokenized assets, that data is coming from off-chain, right? And that data is potentially coming from one data source, where if you're looking at the value of a treasury bill fund that's held in a custodian, well, you have to verify what's in that custodian, or that NAV fund administrator, what that value has, what that NAV fund administrator has recorded as the value. So our verification asset oracle is a product that is addressing kind of real world assets like T-bills and other things that are not crypto native, but can be tokenized on chain, and enables for that verification of the value off chain. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm just thinking in terms of real world assets, RWA, that you've mentioned with, being able to use oracles to be able to engage with RWAs off chain, off chain RWAs on chain. I mean, it's for the last couple of years, the narrative has been RWA is coming, like crypto RWA, it's coming. And it seems like when not quite there, and there's like glimmers of hope around the place. Do you think 2025 is going to be finally the year for RWA in crypto?
Yep, definitely. I mean, I think it's one of those narratives that has legs, and we're seeing it now with just like the sheer amount of treasury bill funds from the likes of giants like BlackRock. You have Franklin Templeton, with their own fund. You have Super State, who has their own fund, and you just see a lot of new products coming out that are building for this type of future, where not just T-bills, which is kind of like the low hanging fruit right now to tokenize and make available for online trading or on-chain trading, but really, what is the extension of that? That could be other fixed income products and commodities, and again, gold, watches, what have you. All of these real world assets have value and have a market that can be harnessed on chain. So I think we're the kind of like product market fit has been T-bills, and now with the interest rate environment changing a bit, I think we'll start to see additional types of financial instruments be tokenized, and it'll just continue from there based on market demand.
Yeah. What else do you think is coming in 2025? What are your fearless forecasts? Any other narratives that you're watching particularly, or you expect to kind of hit the meta?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are excited. Again, meme coins, those have been, keeping people happy and busy even before this post-election euphoria. So I think, meme coins, I think those will continue to, have a place in the space. Bitcoin derivative products are definitely getting a lot of attention. I think, just the sheer amount of Bitcoin and like the desire to have a way to trade it is just creating like a lot of these new derivative products of Bitcoin. And I think that's going to continue. So there's been really in the last few months, a lot of teams and chains actually building specific to like Bitcoin derivative products. I think the tokenization space is definitely going to continue to be strong, and we are really excited about being the data infrastructure enabler of providing the value and verification of off-chain to on-chain information. So we're quite excited about what 2025 is going to be looking like.
Yeah. What is next for? I mean, obviously, only things you can share. What's exciting for what you're building now and MakerDAO coming into 2025?
Yeah. So right now, and for the last 12 months since we soft launched to the public, we've been deploying to different chains. So right now we're on about 10 different chains. We have another 5 in the pipeline. So builders across the ecosystem can utilize Chronicle for their Oracle services, and that's that footprint is continuing to expand. We will be going multi-chain with a few different chains in 2025, TBD on those announcements. But that will also be expanding our service availability beyond just kind of EVM chains. And then with Maker right now, or Sky, they have a tokenization Grand Prix, a program where they will be deploying up to $1 billion into different, treasury bill funds. And, those, anybody could apply to that. So right now, if you go on the Maker forums, you'll see all of the proposals from various teams who are proposing that Maker deploys into their treasury bill funds. And so we're going to be working extremely closely with the execution of that, post announcing who, when Maker announces who those winners are. From the Oracle infrastructure side, we're going to be working very closely with those participants, which is going to be quite very exciting.
How are you finding, even just in our conversation today, I'm thinking about when Twitter rebrands to X and everyone still calls it Twitter, or X formerly known as Twitter. How are you finding Maker was such a strong brand? And like I said, one of the original, people building something actually, worthwhile in crypto and blockchain. How are you finding that rebrand? And Sky's a good name as well. It's not like it's not good, but it's just such a kind of a long history, about as long as you could have really in the Ethereum ecosystem, to Maker and then to rebrand. How are you finding people coming along with a new name?
Yeah, rebrands are always tough, right? Like you can never please anybody, or everyone rather, because some people will prefer what the name was before versus the new name. It's like one of those situations where you just have to go into it, acknowledging that you're not going to make everybody happy, but you made a decision based on, the future trajectory of what you want that brand to stand for and how that name greets future users, not just the ones that have been around since day one. I think it's been, there's people that just really loved the name Maker because it was like the first protocol they played with when they got into crypto, and it's hard for them to kind of like think of it in any other way. Myself included, being a part of Maker since early days, I still naturally just say Maker, and I have to catch myself and say Sky.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that takes time to set in, but the idea around making the name a little bit more accessible and relatable to a universal set of new users or people coming to the brand for the first time, I think that the name is a nice choice. So where it lands, if it like reverts to Maker or if it continues as Sky, I think either works. But yeah, rebrands are always tricky. I think it's just one of those things you can never quite please everybody.
Oh yeah. So yeah, okay. It's good thinking more about if 1 billion people are coming into crypto over the next couple of years, what's best going to greet those billion people rather than the however many billion are in at the moment. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
To be honest, like the word DAI, the stablecoin DAI, it's like a strange word, right? Like I remember early days when I would explain, DAI, and people like dead, die. I'm like, yes, DAI. So that in itself, right? Like to change that to USDS, it's totally logical. But it's hard when you have people who have been attached to it for so long to think of it in any other way.
Speaking of DAI, that took me a while to come around to DAI as well, because I had, you mentioned USDT being backed by currency back in the early days, but nobody really believed that back in the early days. And but there was DAI. But you're right, DAI was, for me at least, not a strong brand. But once I finally actually warmed up and started using it, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. But I think you're right as well. USDS is much more, the heuristic of having the USD in there, I think is really perhaps important for I wasn't even a newbie back in, the first time I was using DAI, but yeah, it was very interesting how just a word or an abbreviation can impact people's perception.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you think about it, if you are new to Coinbase, right? Like you created a new Coinbase account and you're like, I need a stable coin, and you have no existing context of this. But you're just like, I need a stable coin. And you're not going to see DAI and say like, oh, that must be a stable coin. But if you see US something, you're going to say that must be a stable coin. Let me click on it and learn more. So there is like a practical reason for it. That does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Jen, do you have any particularly contrarian views? So everybody's thinking one way, but you think another way, or everyone's swimming this way and you're like, I actually think we should be going that way.
Well, that's good. I mean, I have to admit, like the meme coins at first I thought were kind of like they weren't going to last, but I've come around to realize like they're just a really interesting cultural trade. And I initially was like, this is ridiculous. Like what are you doing here? This is just making the space look worse. But the more I got
out, that's why.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I think they do make a lot of sense because it essentially is it reflects the human desire, especially now with like the way people interact on social media, like TikTok, like what comes viral, who knows, right? Like it's something is funny to one person, but then why is it funny to like millions of people? Like that virality piece is so specific to digital behavior. And I think meme coins, really reflect that. Of course, minus the ones that are like set up to be like just, constructed to pump and dump, right? There are some, I think there are some that are really more about a trend and people just like reacting to like a trend and virality. And that's tradable, right? And that's a cool thing to be able to trade. Can you trade virality? Yeah, you can actually with a meme coin. So yeah. I get it now. I respect it. I mean, are they all perfect? No, like a lot of them are scams, but there are like the concept of them is interesting. And I think it does have lasting power.
Yeah. I must admit my mind on my opinion of meme coins changes. Recently, it's about a month ago, I read an article, someone was talking about how memes actually are serving a community function that with the demise of social institutions over the last generation or two, online natives are finding their community in these meme coins. And I was like, it actually blew my mind to think, oh, wow, actually, yeah, that is exactly what's happening. Communities are forming around narratives or around art or around something. And yeah, it hasn't totally changed my mind, but I've come on board, I think, with meme coins more recently because of that. Although still, I remember, might have been back in 2017 or 18 when Doge hit 1 cent and all the Doge bros were like, we're going to $1. And I thought, that's absolutely ridiculous. And then, this week, Doge went to 50 cents. I couldn't believe it.
Yes. Exactly. And then, I realized like not fundamentals don't necessarily always matter in trading. Like those unfortunately go out the window and it's like, so sometimes less thought is what is, makes more money in trading, surprisingly.
Yeah. Jen, before we go, I'm keen to ask just a little bit more about Chronicle and Oracle specifically, and in particular, the difference between, like philosophically, I think lots of people, especially people who have been around crypto for a while, philosophically really believe in decentralization, really believe in that, distributed philosophy of, anybody can access the infrastructure and build something and make something, and maybe it distills down to code is king. But I just wonder how do you think decentralization is going to go competing against centralization? We spoke a little bit about a centralized oracle compared to a decentralized oracle, and now it's like decentralization has caught up in terms of what it can do and speed and those kinds of things. Where else do you think decentralization or crypto needs to catch up to centralization to either take over or be a viable alternative, or do you think we're already there?
So your question is, where do I think decentralization needs to catch up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to I think it's more about how something works versus like what it's called. And, I would say myself, and probably definitely like the way Chronicle thinks about decentralization is it's still highly regarded, and we're not like ideological maximalists that will, only do something if it's entirely decentralized, despite it or at the cost of it being the right product. But we firmly, believe, based on being experts in Oracle infrastructure, which, again, there's very little precedent for building blockchain oracles because they only came around with, blockchains themselves and having applications that required them in the last, let's say, 10 years. So there's like only a few people you could even like look to as Oracle experts. And Nick is one of those people. And so having gone through so many years securing the largest DeFi protocol with no incident, but understanding intricately what are the needs of that security, decentralization was always the centerpiece. Why? Because if you can manipulate a price feed because you have two validators or again, like one data source, you increase the risk of something going wrong. So again, I think going back to your question is like, how do we get better with like, I guess, people embracing decentralization without it being jammed down their throats? It's really maybe talking less about it in this ideological way, but just like using it because it's the right tool for providing a secure system. And it's just that, right? Like looking under the hood and understanding that a design with many actors who are not connected and many data sources that are not connected results in less tamper-proof data, right? And you're not just relying on one person, one source, trust me, bro, type of mindset. So I think it's really, again, saying the words less and talking about the design more. And I think that's how it kind of earns its place as being a good technology, right?
So what I'm hearing you say is just build a really awesome piece of technology which happens to use a decentralized framework, and that's the ticket, or that's the path. Yeah. Is actually just make it really awesome.
Yeah, and it actually is funny. I saw somebody on X today. So the CMO of Aztec, she's pretty awesome. At DEF CON, she was doing a presentation. I didn't see it, but I just saw her slide. It said like, who gives a F about privacy, right? Because Aztec's chain is like, featuring like privacy enabled transactions. But it's like, that's like, I think without seeing what her presentation was, it's just like that word privacy isn't what's going to win people over, right? Just like that word decentralization. If we only lead with that, like, but we have decentralization, like all come now, like that's not it, right? Like as much as the people that get it and believe in it, like would like to think that everybody else will value it in the same way, it's just not practical. So it's about having a product that is beneficial to users, right? And under the hood, it happens to be decentralized or happens to use privacy. But I'm going to show you why you need this product and why you should rely on a product that has resilient data. And also resilient data happens to come from a decentralized design. So it's like going that way versus like, it's decentralized, because unfortunately it just is winning the hearts and minds of everybody.
The people who care about decentralization are already in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Right. And again, it's like meme coins, appeal to some group of people won't be the same as others. And meme coins to some might sound absurd, while to others it's like, well, no, this is amazing, right? Same thing with centralization. Some people, it just really resonates immediately, where others are like, that's nice, but like, how does this thing work? How is it, providing me a better experience or allowing me to do something new besides it being decentralized? Like, why? So I think that's a part of it. but it's something we're not going to throw away. I mean, we can't throw it away because it's essentially the foundation of how our architecture is built, but it's being aware of the market and understanding what people care about and explaining it in those terms.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good perspective. Jen, thanks heaps for joining us today. If people want to find out more about you or more about Sky, more about Chronicle, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you could follow us on chroniclelabs.org, our website. You could find our technical documentation if you're a builder, our Discord channel, all that information. Actually, a really cool tool is our dashboard. So our Chronicle dashboard has all of our oracles, and you could click on each price update in real time and see from end to end all the raw data, including like what data sources were used, what validators participated, and even the messages they signed to attest that this is the price I'm including. So it's, again, verify, don't trust. And so making that available to anybody, you don't have to be just the engineer to figure it out. You could see that, and it's quite intuitive. So that's super cool. And then, for Sky, I think, the Maker forums are always a good place, to be honest. I mean, we are independent of Maker now. So we're obviously we're a close partner to them, but we are independent to them at this point in time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks heaps for joining us. And we're looking forward to seeing how Chronicle grows into 2025.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Off Chain. We love bringing you great guests like Jen and hope we've inspired you to learn more and think more about Web3, about DeFi, about technology and oracles like today. As always, please like, subscribe, or better yet, share this episode with a friend. Help us spread the word and join us again next week for another exciting episode of Off Chain. Till then, take care.